It was one of those perfect sunny afternoons when all I wanted to do was take my Harley out for a ride, clear my head, and enjoy the open road. I had just pulled up outside a local coffee shop, parked my bike, and was about to grab a quick drink when she appeared. You know, the type: demanding, entitled, convinced the whole world owes her something. This woman marched straight up to me, pointed at my Harley, and said it would be perfect for her son's birthday. At first, I thought she was joking. Who in their right mind demands a stranger's motorcycle like it's a toy from a store shelf? But no, she was dead serious. She started going on about how her son deserved it, how I didn't look like I really needed the bike, and that since I could just buy another, I should hand mine over. When I refused, politely, I might. Her tone changed fast. She raised her voice, drew the attention of people nearby, and then pulled out her phone. With a smug look, she called the police, loudly claiming I was harassing her and refusing to give her property. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My Harley, my pride and joy, suddenly twisted into some bizarre entitlement fantasy. Now, here's where things get interesting. While she was dialing, I knew something she didn't. I wasn't just some random guy with a bike. Let's just say I had a connection that could flip this whole situation on its head. The entitled demand, the fake accusations, the call to the cops. She had no idea the storm she had just walked into. And when the truth came out, let's just say her reaction was nothing like what she expected. The crowd around us started to grow as this woman kept yelling into her phone, telling the police that I had stolen her son's motorcycle. People walking by stopped and stared, some whispering, others shaking their heads like they couldn't believe what they were seeing. I stood there beside my Harley, trying to stay calm, but inside, I was boiling. This bike wasn't just a machine to mitt, was years of saving, hours of work, and a lot of memories tied up in every polished chrome detail. Hearing her call it hers felt like an insult on a whole different level. What made it worse was the way she carried herself. She kept talking over me, throwing her arms up and making it seem like I was the villain. Her son, who couldn't have been more than 17, stood off to the side, looking embarrassed but also curious. He didn't say a word, just glanced at the bike every now and then like he wanted it, but also knew something wasn't right. It made me wonder, was he used to his mom pulling stunts like this? Or was this just another one of her my way or nothing moments? Now here's the part that kept me steady. I wasn't worried about the cops showing up because I knew the truth would come out the second they did. But what she didn't know, and what made the whole thing almost laughable, was that I had a strong connection to the state attorney's office. Not only did I have proof of ownership, but I also had someone in my corner who didn't take kindly to false reports. Still, I decided not to reveal that card just yet, so I waited. I let her dig herself deeper, making wild claims and drawing all the attention she thought she wanted. Because when the flashing lights finally pulled up, that's when the real story would begin. It didn't take long before the sound of sirens cut through the chatter of the crowd. 2 police cars pulled up, and just like that, the woman's confidence shot through the roof. She waved her arms dramatically, pointing at me, like she had just caught some wanted criminal. "That's him," she shouted. "He stole my son's motorcycle." The officers looked from her to me, then to the Harley gleaming under the sun. And I could see the confusion flicker across their faces. I kept my cool, but inside, I was running through every angle. Sure, I had all the paperwork in my saddlebag. But I also knew how these situations could play out. A loud voice often makes more noise than the truth at first. The woman kept talking over me, telling the officers how I had threatened her and refused to give her property back. Every word twisted reality just a little further. And the crowd seemed torn between disbelief and curiosity. Her son stood frozen on the sidewalk. He looked at the police, then back at me, almost like he wanted to speak up but didn't dare cross his mother. That silence told me a lot. This wasn't the first time she'd caused a scene. Part of me wondered if he even wanted the Harley, or if he was just another pawn in her attempt to get her way. The officers asked for my side, and I explained calmly that the Harley was mine, registered, insured, and paid for with my own hard work. I didn't mention my state attorney connection yet. I wanted to see how far she was willing to take her performance. She smiled smugly, as if convinced the police were already on her side. Little did she know, the biggest twist was still waiting. To unfold, the officers split their attention between us, one talking to her while the other stayed with me. She kept spinning her story, louder and louder, almost like she thought volume would prove her right. He's lying. That bike is for my son. Look at him. He deserves it. She yelled, pointing at the boy, who by now looked like he wanted to disappear into the pavement. The kid shifted nervously, his eyes darting between the officers and me. And I could see the guilt in his face. I opened my saddlebag slowly and pulled out the registration, title, and insurance papers, handing them over to the officer. He studied them carefully, and I saw his eyebrow raise. It was clear the documents checked out, but he didn't say anything yet. The woman must have sensed it because she suddenly grew even more frantic. She stepped closer, waving her hands, saying, "I must have faked the documents." Her voice cracked. But she doubled down, as if denial could somehow erase the facts. The crowd had gone quiet, watching like it was a live courtroom drama. Phones were out, recording everything, and I could almost feel the tension tightening around us. The officers were calm, but their patience was thinning, and every new word out of her mouth seemed to push things closer to a breaking point. I kept my cool, though my heart was pounding. I knew my connection to the state attorney could settle this instantly, but there was a reason I hadn't played that card yet. The way she was burying herself deeper with every lie. The way the crowd was capturing it all, it was becoming bigger than just my Harley. And then one officer stepped aside, radioing in for confirmation. The air went heavy. Everyone leaned in, waiting. Something big was about to drop. The officer who had radioed in stepped back toward us. But before he could even open his mouth, the woman launched into another dramatic outburst. She accused me of bribing officials, said I had connections in shady places, and claimed that was how I got the paperwork for the Harley. The crowd gasped, and suddenly the whole scene took another sharp turn. It wasn't enough that she was trying to take my bike. Now she was painting me as some kind of criminal mastermind. The second officer tried to calm her down, but she refused to stop, talking over everyone, her voice cracking but relentless. Her son tugged lightly on her sleeve, whispering something, but she snapped at him to stay quiet. That moment stuck with me. The kid clearly knew the truth. Maybe even wanted to come clean, but the fear of crossing his mom kept him frozen. The tension between them almost became its own subplot, like a silent battle playing out while the bigger storm raged. And then came the twist. Another car pulled up, not a police cruiser, but an unmarked vehicle. Out stepped a man in a suit, sharp and direct. The crowd murmured, sensing something serious. The officers straightened immediately, clearly recognizing him. The woman's smug grin widened, assuming he was there to back her up. She puffed out her chest, ready to repeat her story yet again, as if her win was moments away. But I knew exactly who he was. This wasn't just anyone, it was someone tied directly to the state attorney's office. My hidden card had just walked onto the stage, though I still hadn't said a word about my connection. The crowd leaned in closer. The officers went silent, and the woman, thinking she had backup, only grew louder. She had no clue she was walking straight into her own undoing. The man in the suit stepped forward, his calm presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. The officers greeted him with respect, and the woman wasted no time throwing her story at him, repeating every wild claim as if she'd finally found someone who would take her side. "This man stole my son's Harley," she shouted, her voice cracking under the weight of her own desperation. The suited man didn't interrupt, didn't even flinch. He just listened carefully, his eyes occasionally flicking toward me. When she finally paused for air, he turned to me and asked for my side. I handed him the same paperwork I'd given the officers, steady and quiet. He looked them over, nodded once, and then slipped something out of his pocket. It was a badged state attorney's office. The crowd erupted in whispers. The woman's confident smirk froze, confusion flashing across her face. Then came the turning point. The man spoke firmly, explaining that the bike was legally mine. The documents were valid, and that making false police reports was a serious crime. The woman stammered, tried to backpedal, even blamed her son, saying he must have misunderstood and she was just protecting him. Her son's face went red with embarrassment, but for the first time he muttered, "Mom, stop. It's not ours." The entire crowd heard it. Phones kept recording. The officers looked at each other, and I could tell the situation had finally flipped. She went from bold and loud to shaky and defensive in seconds. And just when it seemed like it was all over, the man in the suit leaned closer and said something she didn't expect. This wasn't her first complaint on record. Suddenly, it wasn't just about my Harley anymore. It was about a pattern of behavior that had finally caught up with her. The twist no one saw coming. The air around us shifted the moment those words were spoken. The woman's bravado completely collapsed, and for the first time since she marched up to me, she had nothing to say. The officers explained that making repeated false claims wasn't just embarrassing, it was a serious offense. She tried to argue, but her voice was weak now. The crowd no longer buying into her story. People shook their heads, some even laughing quietly at how fast the tables had turned. Her son stood there, shoulders hunched, looking like he wished he could disappear. For a brief second, I actually felt sorry for him. He hadn't asked for any of this, and clearly he was used to being dragged into his mother's battles. When the suited man reminded the woman that her behavior was being documented, the kid finally spoke again, this time louder. "Mom, just stop. It's his bike." That broke whatever illusion she'd been holding on to. The officers handed my paperwork back with a nod of respect, confirming that everything was in order. My Harley was mine, always had been, and now the truth was undeniable. The woman was escorted aside for more questioning, her dramatic act unraveling in front of everyone's phones and cameras. The crowd began to disperse, still buzzing about what they'd just witnessed. I strapped my paperwork back into the saddlebag and caught the eye of the man in the suit. He gave me the smallest grin, like we both knew this wasn't just about a motorcycle. It was about standing firm when someone tries to take what isn't theirs, kicking my Harley to life. I rode off with the engine rumbling beneath me, leaving behind the chaos my takeaway. Entitlement might make noise, but truth speaks louder, and in the end, it always rides away stronger.